everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, we have reached the end of the first full week of July, and with kids out of school and the temperature soaring, I think it's pretty safe to say summer is in full swing. I know there are always tons of really crazy, fun, active things to do, but every once in a while, I think it's also really nice to just spend an evening in relaxing, pop a couple bowls of popcorn, and just have a good time watching a movie with the whole family. Now, today's picks are all really family-friendly films that should appeal to a wide variety of ages. They feature stories about friendship, romance, wildlife, and much, much, much more. So, as always, all of these recommendations are available entirely for free to you with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. They're available on our 3 video services, though today we only feature 2 of those. Our video services are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. So without any further ado, let's get on to those family-friendly recs. Okay, my first couple of films are from way back in the 90s, and isn't it terrifying that I can refer to the 90s as way back? But that's neither here nor there. These films are both movies that I watched when I was a kid and that I absolutely adored, and that I discovered really stand the test of time, even upon my rewatch from a couple weeks ago. They were just as entertaining now as they were back then. Now, the first of those is available on Hoopla, and that is 1997's Anastasia. Now, Anastasia is one of those non-Disney animated films that is chock full of absolutely beautiful music, has a really, really solid cast, and just tells a story that will appeal to anyone who loves those sort of classic Disney romances like Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and it's just there's just something about it that's really, really charming and enjoyable. Now, it is not at all historically accurate. Of course, Anastasia is based off of the young girl from the Romanov family in Russia, but, again, not historically accurate, and neither have any of the live action adaptations been particularly historically accurate either, so it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what matters is the fact that this is one of those cartoons that you can find enjoyable whether or not you're 6 years old or 60 years old. If you like music, if you like animation, this is absolutely perfect. So in Anastasia, we've got this backstory where an evil court magician named Rasputin curses the Romanov family of Russia, and the Romanovs meet with tragedy, and their castle is attacked, and their youngest member, Anastasia, is separated from them, and no one knows what happened to her, and essentially the entire Romanov dynasty is gone. This all happens very, very quickly. It's definitely not something that's outside of the realm of the scary that you'd see in other animated features. So flash forward several years later, the remaining family member, the Grand Duchess, she decides to offer money to anyone who can produce this young missing Anastasia. So these 2 Russian con artists decide to essentially find somebody, anybody that they can get to fool this Grand Duchess into believing she's the real thing. And they hold auditions for this part, only to discover the one girl that they find strikes an unnatural resemblance to the young Anastasia, and come to find out she is, of course, the real thing. Cue hijinks and incredible musical numbers and ridiculous character actor cameos, and you just get this wonderful journey. Of course, you have tons of romance thrown in with one of the younger con artist and the young Anastasia, and there's just so much to enjoy about it. There are definitely songs that you'll be humming along to long after the film is over. You've got a lot of comedy thrown in with this little anthropomorphic bat voiced by Hank Azaria, of all people, who's just kind of king of those little quirky characters. Anastasia is voiced by Meg Ryan. You've got John Cusack voicing her young Russian con artist love interest. Kelsey Grammer is the other schemer. And then Rasputin is being voiced by Christopher Lloyd. Like I said, the cast is really, really solid, and they just sort of have such a great time with these characters. It's really, really, it comes across really clearly. So if you are looking for something that you can definitely watch with family members of all ages, I double checked. Common Sense Media even gives it a age 6+ rating, so it really does run the gamut of everybody. If you're looking for that sort of classic animated feature romance feel, beautiful music, really, really gorgeous colors, definitely check out Anastasia. It's one of those that I think you can watch over and over again and you won't get irritated. Again, the music's beautiful, so it's not like full of songs that will be grating very quickly, which is very, very important considering kids do tend to want to watch things multiple times. So if you get the chance, check this one out. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Again, Anastasia, available on Hoopla. Okay, another of my 90s throwback recommendations is also available on Hoopla, and this is for 1994's adaptation of Anna Sewell's novel, Black Beauty. There have been a ton of adaptations of this book, a ton. I think this is even like the 5th version, and there have been a couple more since, but there's just something about this particular piece that resonates even after 20 years. I think it's in large part due to the voice work of Alan Cumming, who plays Beauty, and it's just really, really extraordinary voice acting. Black Beauty is a live action film, and primarily all of your actors are going to be human characters. They are populated by really phenomenal actors like Sean Bean. You've got David Thewlis. You've got tons of other really familiar British actors. But you also, for the entire film, have this voiceover narration from Cumming. It's the only real animal point of view that we as the audience get, but it's absolutely vital to the storyline. And there's just something about the way that that sort of external point of view sort of flows over the live action that we're seeing that seems almost like a storybook come to life, and it works incredibly well. I found it particularly engrossing in some of the scenes that are a lot darker and that would have been very, very difficult to express without that sort of point of view narration. Anyway, his work is really what binds this whole story together. Now, in Black Beauty, you're following the story of this horse who is at some point in his life named Beauty. All the way from his days as a foal throughout his life, he has periods of great happiness where he's with good people and young families, people he thinks he's going to be with for his entire life. And then he has periods of great tragedy that he's going through. But at every point in this story, you get this sense of joy of existence. And again, I think that's in large part to the work done by Cumming. And I don't think it would have worked with a lot of other actors. You have some periods, like I said, that are pretty dark, but at the same time, nothing darker than you would get in any other like Disney-fied family feature. I double checked again on Common Sense Media. This one was recommended ages 10+. I would definitely agree. I would also say anyone who's going through a horse phase, regardless of how old they are, will absolutely love this movie. I think that's probably around when I first watched it too, and I was obsessed, and I thought it was just the coolest story that you could latch onto really, really easily, especially if you do love horses and you want to give them that sort of sense of humanity, and this does exactly that. So if you are looking for a lovely sort of animal centric family film, if you have a horse lover in your family, if you like really ridiculously good acting and you like unusual ways of um, explaining plot, check out this particular adaptation of Black Beauty. It's really, really wonderful. And again, Alan Cumming is phenomenal in it. You won't regret it. Again, Black Beauty available on Hoopla. Okay, moving right along to my next recommendation. This one is perfect for anyone who's looking for something ridiculous and funny and definitely weird and quirky, and that is 2005's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, when I was a teenager, I discovered Douglas Adams' books and was absolutely obsessed. I loved the universe that he built. It was so odd and weird and wacky and wonderful. And I think that this film adaptation does an excellent job of keeping that vibe alive throughout. In this particular story, we are following Arthur Dent, played by Martin Freeman of Sherlock fame. He was Watson in the BBC series. Anyway, Arthur's just this everyday Joe. He's trying to keep his house from being demolished, only to discover that he has much bigger problems at hand. The Earth is about to be destroyed by aliens in order to make way for a superhighway. At the last minute, Arthur is pulled from Earth to this orbiting spaceship by his new friend, played by Mos Def. The friend is Ford Prefect, and he kicks off this whole series of misadventures that are more and more ludicrous as we go along. And it really is such a fun film. 150 minutes of increasingly ridiculous circumstances. And, you know, the entire time I first watched it, I was absolutely charmed. And even on rewatch just a couple weeks ago, I still found myself having a good time. As I mentioned, you've got Martin Freeman playing Arthur Dent, Mos Def playing Ford Prefect. You've got Alan Rickman voicing this depressed android. You've got some phenomenal weird work done by Sam Rockwell as President Zaphod Beeblebrox. You, along the journey, meet these horrible poetry spouting creatures called the Vogons. You meet a ton of other really ridiculous characters. You've also got a love interest played by Zooey Deschanel. I mean, it's like the weirdest kind of Star Trek / Star Wars / every kind of space adventure you've ever thought of, mixed up in a blender, and with increasingly odd circumstances happening. It's just a marvelously weird ride. I mean, that's probably the best way to sum this one up. Now, I double checked on Common Sense Media. They do say 10 plus. I would agree. I definitely think there are some things that will go way over the heads of some small kids, but for the most part, most of any violence that you see is pretty like slapsticky. It is, in general, just one of those films that's like, that feels really outside the realm of possibility. So I think no one would be overly concerned by anything that they're seeing on screen as far as like violence or things like that go. Again, Common Sense Media gives it a 10 plus, and I think this is perfect for anyone who's looking for something really silly and ridiculous and funny that will work well for anybody from that particular young age all the way through to adulthood. So again, available on Hoopla, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, definite must watch. Okay, my next recommendation is also available on Hoopla and is perfect for anyone with kids who happen to be animal lovers. It's 2009's documentary, Turtle Odyssey. I know you hear documentary and most of you are probably immediately like, my kid's not going to watch that. This one is very, very different. This is one of those documentaries that absolutely does not feel like one. It's narrated by Russell Crowe, and in it we are following a turtle who the film names Bungie, from Bungie's birth all the way through her first 25 years, and we do that in a period of 45 minutes. It's quick, it's clearly designed for a younger audience, but will definitely also appeal to an older one. And Bungie's life is just super interesting, um, because the filmmakers managed to make the realities of a sea turtle's life really entertaining. Um, because a lot of a sea turtle's early life is pretty harrowing. You've got that initial struggle from the egg to the water's edge. Um, the music does a really good job of giving you that sense of danger, because of course a baby sea turtle could be picked off by any number of predators as they get from their eggshell to the water. Then you get another sense of like potential danger when you're first in the water, tumbling over and over in the surf. And the documentary manages to give you that sense of sort of like concern without making it overwhelmingly scary. You're not seeing other little sea turtles being picked off or anything. You're just following Bungie, and Bungie is safe. I will, spoiler alert, Bungie stays safe, so we do get that. Um, and we get to see this little sea turtle like just continue to exist in her ocean life. We see sort of the cycle of a sea turtle, how it takes a great many years for them to grow out of youth and adolescence, and how, the fact that there could be a sea turtle story that lasts 25 years is amazing. But it also clearly shows you that there are many, many more years to this sea turtle's life. So, you know, it's a really good introduction to this sort of wildlife documentary where you don't have to be overly concerned about seeing anything too scary or too real life, but you do get like real things happening. You definitely get a sense of the environmental concerns that sea turtles have to face that are brought on by humans, environmental concerns brought on by other sea creatures, and the entire time you really feel like you're watching a storyline. It feels like a fictional film, even though it is done in a documentary style. So I do think that something like this, which is filmed beautifully, it's like IMAX style, and it's bright and colorful and just really, really visually appealing, but that also has this very appealing storyline. It's a good way to introduce young ones to documentaries in general, especially if you have concerns about, your more standard, like hardcore seems a weird way to describe a documentary, but if you have your more mainstream style wildlife documentaries and you're wary of those, this one's a great way to sort of dive in. Again, I mentioned Russell Crowe does narration for this. He does a great job. It also works well with the idea that Bungie happens to be an Australian sea turtle, so you get the whole Aussie vibe going on too. And while you've got like the real legit suspenseful moments, nothing gets too intense. So when I double checked, Common Sense gave this ages 7 and up. I would 100% agree with that. You can definitely show it to little ones who are interested in animals and wildlife, sea creatures, things like that, and have them be absolutely enthralled. And I think you'll be able to be invested in the storyline too. So all the better. So again, definitely if you've got kids who like animals or you're interested in introducing documentary style films to them, check out 2009's Turtle Odyssey, available on Hoopla. Okay, so my final recommendation for this week is available on Canopy, and it actually happens to be my pick of the week, and that is 2009's The Secret of Kells. This movie is an absolute must watch. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite films, whether we're talking about animated features or any kind of feature at all. You absolutely have to watch it. If you don't watch any of the other movies, this is the one to do. In it, we are following a young boy named Brendan. It's 9th century Ireland. He lives in this tiny village, primarily populated by the members of an abbey. They are monks led by an abbot who is, obsessed with the idea of building a wall around his village to keep his people safe. Because at that particular time, villages all around them were being systematically decimated by the onslaught of Vikings, who left very few people alive after each raid. So, it's not a bad obsession to have. But he did very much forbid Brendan from ever leaving these walls because he wanted to keep him safe. Very early on in the story, though, this celebrated master illustrator monk comes to their village after his village has been destroyed by invaders. And with him, he carries his life work, this ancient book that is full of wisdom and insights and is supposed to essentially save the world with its stories. Brendan ends up kind of being tapped as this brilliant artist monk's apprentice, and at a certain point, he ends up leaving those walls, despite the fact of being forbidden, to venture into the forest to get berries that will serve as ink for this book. And that's where things really go crazy. So even within that first adventure, where we've got harrowing escapes from wolves, along with a meeting of this pivotal character, this young forest fairy named Aisling. So that's really one of those pivotal relationships that we find in the story that, really catches you very, very quickly. And, it gives Brendan that first sense of, I don't know, wanderlust a little bit, but also purpose. He's no longer feels like just this little boy that's hiding, but he's got a reason to exist. He wants to go on this adventure. He wants to do these things. Then when he ends up coming back to the Abbey with the berries that they needed, he, faces a good deal of censure from the head abbot. So, that sets up another bit of conflict. And he continues to have adventures throughout the film. And it really is this beautifully done coming of age story, full of the sense of wonder and fantasy from, a story from that particular time period. And you top off this really, really engrossing fantasy story with absolutely phenomenal art. I mean, it's nothing like the kind of art you usually see. And the colors and the vibrance and just the way that shapes are formed on screen. It's not like your traditional Disney style animation, but it's certainly nothing like your Eastern anime style art either. It's completely its own thing, and I think that's one of those elements that catches you right away. I mean, just look at the film poster and you can see it's not going to look like animated films that you've seen before. So if you're looking for a really, really beautiful story with lots of fantasy and that's got folklore and ties to history, definitely make sure you check out The Secret of Kells. Common Sense Media gives it a 9+. I would say there are definitely seriously intense moments because there are definitely some pretty dark themes going on, but it's really tempered by the spirit of the film at the end of the day. It's got some absolutely gorgeous music going on as well. So if you like that particular kind of story, like I said, the throwback fantasy folklore tinged tale, you absolutely have to watch this. I recommend it to everybody I know. I really love it. Again, Secret of Kells, available on Canopy. Pick of the week, an absolute must watch. Okay, so those were all of my recommendations for this week. If you have a film that you would like to recommend as a family feature, please, please, please comment with that below. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future, comment with that as well. I am always looking for help in that direction every single time. As always, I loved putting this together. Thank you so, so much for joining me this week. It really is a joy to be able to deep dive into our catalog every time and be able to see all of the different things we offer. Again, if you ever aren't able to find something that appeals to you from my recommendations, make sure you check out our 3 services. There are thousands and thousands of videos out there. You will find something you like, I guarantee it. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this week's episode. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.